Driving in Canada can be a great way for an international student to explore the country and at least gain some form of independence when they arrive in Canada. And one thing that you will realize when you get to Canada, especially if you are going to one of those smaller cities or towns, is that you begin to find out that, in fact, driving is not a luxury, it is something that's really a necessity. And one way or the other, you either need to acquire a driver's license or at least get a car to be able to move out comfortably. However, as an international student, there's one thing that you have to be aware of, is the fact that there are regulations and requirements for you to be able to drive in Canada, even if you've been driving in your home country. So in this video, I want to share with you information and essential tips that at least you can use to prepare yourself before you even arrive in Canada, to be able to at least meet the necessary requirements and regulations that will allow you to be able to drive. The first point that we will talk about is getting a driver's license. To be able to drive in Canada as an international student or even a newcomer, you need to at least obtain a driver's license. The process for obtaining a driver's license can vary depending on the territory or province that you find yourself. But in all cases, you will need to first pass a written test and also a driving test on the road to be able to at least be fully certified to drive in Canada. Getting a driver's license in Canada requires some amount of preparation and effort. The first step is for you to obtain a learner's driver's license, and this will require you to at least pass a written test on the rules of the road, signs, and at least signals before at least you'll be issued a learner's driver's license. And this learner's license will at least qualify you to be able to drive on the Canadian road with a fully licensed driver sitting by your side. And after several months of practice on the road, you will now be qualified to at least take the road test, which will qualify you to get a fully functional driver's license. So you get a full driver's license that will now allow you to drive without any restrictions. There are different types of licenses depending on the territory or province that you land in Canada as an international student or a newcomer. The most common type is the Class 5 driver's license, which will allow you as an individual to drive a car, a van, or even a small truck. And to get this Class 5 driver's license, you will be required to at least pass a vision test, a written test, and a road test. So basically, they are going to test your eye to see if you are somebody who can see properly, and they will also test you to make sure that you know the signs on the road, you know the signals, and you know the regulations when you are driving on the road. So you'll be required to pass a written test. Then they will now take you to the road to make sure that even as a driver, you can drive properly and obey all the rules and regulations of the road. So these are 3 tests that if to get a Class 5 license, you'll be required to pass. That's the vision test, the written test, and the road test. It doesn't matter which province that you find yourself in. There are some specific requirements for new drivers who decide to drive in Canada. Basically, in most cases, there might be a graduating system where, depending on your age, you might be restricted when it comes to driving at night, or depending on your level of driving, they will put some other restrictions on you that will not allow you to drive at particular times of the day. And also, depending on the country that you are coming from, sometimes you have the possibility of being able to at least exchange the license that you have from your home country with the one that you are getting in Canada. So basically, they will waive that option of you having to now go through the vision test, the driving test, and even the written test, because they at least accept those driver's license from those countries. So if you are somebody coming from any of those countries, this is something that you can take advantage of. And in most cases, if you come in with your own driver's license from your home country as an international student or even a newcomer, depending on your province that you landed in, you will be able to at least use it to drive for at least up to 90 days. But after that 90 days, you will be required to either take the road test, the written test, to be able to get a Canadian license and be able to drive. And they do all this to make sure that at least all road users are protected one way or the other. And personally, when I came in and decided to take my driver's license, that's why I realized that for most of us, we were taught to drive defensively. But here, you need to trust other road users that they are going to obey the rules and regulations. So some of the countries that at least if you can easily exchange your driver's license from without having to sit for the road test, the written test, or even the vision test are either if you are coming from Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, Switzerland, Japan, North Korea, and even the United Kingdom, and even the United States. However, it is important to know that the process for exchanging the driver's license, if you are coming from any of these countries, will vary from province to province. And personally, my advice has always been, if you are one of those who can easily exchange your driver's license, make sure that as soon as you land, you do that, so that even when it comes to looking for jobs or any other opportunities, you can now put it on your resume or even a cover letter that you have a driver's license, because for some companies it will be an advantage for you because they might require you to drive one way or the other. And additionally, if your driver's license is from a country that does not speak English or French, you will be required to provide a translation of your driver's license into English or French. Number 2 is regulations. To be able to drive in Canada, it is essential that you understand all the rules and regulations. In Canada, drivers must drive on the right side of the road, and you are required to have your seatbelt on every time that you sit behind the steering wheel. And also you need to at least drive below the speed limit. And you'll be shocking to know that every particular part of the road will have a specific speed limit that you have to at least abide by. And when you are driving, you are required to have your eye on a swivel so that you can notice these ones and change as quickly as possible. And one thing that you have to also notice that it is illegal to use a mobile device whilst you are driving. Recently, there was even a video that was going around where in one of the provinces, they had policemen going around. And even if you have a phone sitting behind your two legs, you will be issued a ticket for just having the phone because it's going to distract you and you will risk other road users. So as an international student or a newcomer, if you have plans of driving in Canada, there are a few regulations that at least you have to take note of. Firstly, you have to know that Canada has a strict driving regulations and restrictions, and it might be different from what you have in your home country. And also, if you are in doubt about anything about the rules and regulations or how you can drive, my advice is also always make sure that you contact the necessary regulatory body in your province. Another key consideration that you also have to take note of if you plan to drive in Canada is car insurance. In Canada, you are required to have car insurance for any car that you are driving around. So unlike some of the other places that we are coming from where car insurance might not be strictly regulated, here any car that you decide to drive, you need to make sure that at least it has car insurance before you drive it off onto the road. Else you might be putting yourself in hot waters if something goes wrong. One thing that you also have to factor into your costing beyond just buying the car is the cost of car insurance, because car insurance here can tend to sometimes be very expensive and you end up paying it either monthly, quarterly, or annually. And when you land and maybe you want to get more understanding of it, you can contact any insurance provider in the province or territory that you find yourself in, and they'll be happy to explain to you into details and tell you all the options that are available to you. So when it comes to driving in Canada as an international student, you are required to 1, have a driver's license. 2, you are required to obey all the road signs, rules and regulations, at least have a full understanding of them and be able to interpret them. The interpretation is as important as just knowing them. And also, if you decide to buy a car, you need to make sure that that car has a car insurance before you can drive it off onto the road. So these are some regulations that at least you need to know if you have plans of driving in Canada as an international student. So before you land, you can start even researching into all these things so that when you land in Canada, you can quickly at least start the process of at least driving. Number 3 is winter driving. If you have interest in moving to Canada and driving is something that you'll be interested in, then one thing you have to be aware of is winter driving, because Canada is a country that snows, and when it snows, it really snows, and you'll be required to at least know how to drive during the winter. Winter driving can be a challenge because of the snow and the ice on the road and sometimes low visibility. To stay safe on the road, you will need to make sure that if you have summer tires under your car, then you need to start making plans of buying winter tires for the winter season. And during the winter, you are required to at least make sure that you are driving at a safe distance from all cars, and also be driving with your headlights on, just to make sure that other people can see you when you are coming because of poor visibility. And also during the winter, you'll be required to at least check the weather conditions before you decide to drive off your car, so that at least you know what kind of weather that you are driving into and be prepared for it. And in addition to all these driving tips, as an international student or a newcomer, you are required to at least understand the rules or regulations of driving during the winter in that province that you find yourself, because not all provinces or territories are the same. Some of them get more snow than others, and some get more colder than others, so they might have different rules and regulations when it comes to driving during the winter. The next one will be some safety tips. So as an international student, there are some safety tips that at least you need to have handy to be able to drive comfortably on the road. The first one is always wear seatbelts. Before you move a car, you need to make sure that you are wearing a seatbelt, and every single person sitting in your car has a seatbelt on. If you don't have a seatbelt on and you are stopped, you might end up being fined, or worst case scenario, you might end up possibly getting in prison if something goes wrong. Next one is obey the traffic rules and regulations. As much as you think it's very easy to just follow them, you need to at least know and understand them and interpret them. Personally, I've been driving for almost 15 years. But when I got here, the first 2 times I have to even test for my driver's license, I ran the red lights. And I was surprised. My whole life, even back in Ghana, I never ran red lights. But here, because I failed to interpret the road signals, I end up running red lights. So you are required to obey the rules and regulations and interpret them properly. When you get here, you realize that green can mean different things at different times. Red can also mean different things at different times, depending on what part of the road that you are on or how the road situations are. So you need to understand and interpret it properly. Next one is stay alert and focused. You need to make sure that when you are sitting behind the wheel, all your 5 senses are engaged. Your eyes are moving around. You are scanning the road for all possible situations. Your ears are wide open, so you are listening for any other things that might be happening on the road. Your hands are not engaged with your phone. You are actually holding the steering wheel, so that if something goes wrong, you can react quickly. So it is important to avoid any form of distractions whilst you are sitting behind the wheel. Then always keep a safe distance. When it comes to driving, always make sure that you are keeping a safe distance between you and the next car in front of you, so that in case anything goes wrong, you can quickly react and not hit that car. Then always drive defensively. When you are on the road, you need to always try to anticipate the actions of other road users so that you can react quickly if something goes wrong. Because in Canada, human beings, the moment somebody steps on the road, as a driver, you are supposed to stop for the person to cross. If you make a mistake and you hit that person, you find yourself in hot waters. Even animals on the road, you are required to stop and wait for them to cross. And also, always check weather conditions before you move your car. This is especially important during the winter periods. You will need to at least check the weather conditions before you drive your car off the parking lot. Make sure that you understand the road conditions, the possible weather that's going to come up, or even the road situations, and know that you are comfortable driving in them before you drive off onto the road. If you are not comfortable driving in the weather, just relax and don't risk your life. These are some tips that I have at least picked up whilst driving in Canada since I've been here, that I think will be beneficial to you. If you have any questions, or maybe you also have any experiences when it comes to driving in Canada that you want to share with other people here, feel free to leave it in the comment section. If you have any questions that possibly you want us to all engage on, you can just leave it in the comment section and I'll do well to respond to them. Like I always say, everybody's experience is different. So if your experience is different, feel free to share it in the description column or even in the comment column so that we all learn together. And so I've also been getting people reaching out to me about possibly meeting me to have discussions one way or the other. If you have plans of maybe having a personalized discussion with me, you can check the description area. I will leave a link to my calendar there. Kindly hit on it. You can book some time with me where we can talk about everything and anything. Other people have done it. You can also do it, where you book some time with me, you will see my availability, we can just meet, and at the end of the day, you are the one going to drive that discussion. You ask all the questions that possibly you want to get answers to, and I'll do what to answer them based on my experience and the research and the things that at least I know. The ones that I don't know, I will possibly help direct you in the right direction to get the necessary answers. Until the next video, cheers.